The woman fanned the cards across the table, sprinkled pebbles on the velvet cloth, and asked Betty to pick the bone runes from the pouch. Each symbol foretold impending troubles and a traitor lurking in the shadows. As Betty Miller trudged home through the twilight painted with lavender hues, disappointment weighed heavily on her. Seeking comfort, she'd visited the famous fortune teller. Yet now her heart felt burdened like a stone. She must be a fake, Betty thought. The price is a ripoff. Mark still needs a decent sweater. Those cheap ones from Discount Dan's are falling apart. And who else? What trouble? Such nonsense. I'll confront Petrovna and expose her phony predictions. Consequences be damned. In her 58 years, Betty Miller had never harbored ill will towards her husband. She'd been raised with the saying, "Speak well of your spouse or stay silent." The key to a strong marriage was knowing when to keep your mouth shut and focus on what truly matters, a principle known as wifely wisdom. Memories of their joyful encounter years ago surfaced in her mind. At 19, a job opening at the bus depot had brought her there thanks to a friend from tech school. Youth exudes charm, and in Betty's case, it was adorned with a quiet elegance. She avoided makeup, finding pride in her simplicity, her hair unstyled, her clothes modest. On that particular day, Betty appeared even more understated than usual in her blue cotton sundress with a delicate white flower pattern. Only her dark blonde hair flowed freely, catching the breeze. A sense of hopeful anticipation filled her young heart as she finished her tasks, grabbed her purse, and was stopped just as she reached the exit. "Hey there, young lady, where's the depot? I need to deliver this package," the voice boomed out, assertive but polite. Standing next to the truck, holding his paperwork, was a tall, athletic, tan man with a smile that could melt glaciers. "Right there," Betty exclaimed, surprised. "You found it." "Really?" "Well, I followed the map and signs to the depot, and the address matched," the young man replied, his smile unwavering. "Could you give me a ride? I'm running a bit behind schedule." "Well, the workday is over, and by the rules, you should wait until tomorrow." Betty hesitated, though her desire to help this handsome stranger was undeniable. At the gate, the guard grinned widely as the girl explained the need to let the vehicle through for a cargo delivery. Betty couldn't help but wonder if the guard harbored inappropriate thoughts about her and the young man. But she quickly dismissed such ideas. Under the gaze of the driver's warm brown eyes, she bustled about, efficiently finishing the paperwork with a touch of a blush that only added to her charm. The new acquaintance brought a unique appeal with his lack of crude jokes, the usual workplace flirting, or suggestive looks all too common from drivers and freight handlers. Yet, his manner was disarming and friendly. "Thank you, miss," the man expressed his gratitude. "My name is Nick. You must be Betty. I have to take you somewhere. Let's head to your place. You can freshen up, and then we'll grab a bite at a cool spot." Gazing out the bus window, Betty Miller couldn't help but smile as she recalled how he'd taken charge right away, talking like they were already married. A real go-getter doesn't wait for permission, makes it happen. A master of his world. She'd brushed off the fortune teller's odd words, and it seemed her sadness had vanished. They got married quickly. Of course, her friends gossiped. What kind of catch was he? No roots, came from out of state, no property, no real savings, not even his own car. But Betty wasn't fazed. Love-struck girls don't sweat the small stuff. Her grandma's apartment became their official family home. 40 years, she thought now. That's a long haul. There were good times and bad. He'd come home late. Messages on his phone would disappear mysteriously. And there were other uncertainties. But none of it mattered. A memory popped into her head. The time Nick brought his sister home late one night. Quite a story. She'd come from Cleveland to Chicago and had nowhere to crash. Betty felt a wave of relief. At least it was kind of family. She made up the bed, offered a toothbrush, and peppered him with questions about Nick's childhood. But a month later, On New Year's Eve, when Betty suggested inviting his sister again, her husband flat out refused, even scoffed. And as usual, the wife kept quiet. Women's wisdom, she thought, was key. Don't let these things ruin your relationship. Constant nagging or prying wouldn't help. Happiness, not being right, was what mattered. Home should be a haven of peace and comfort. Why fight? Almost 40 years flew by like that. A month ago, Nick landed in the hospital, and the doctors gave him a terrible diagnosis. It hit her like a ton of bricks. "Honey, I need surgery. Where will I get all that money?" "Sell your apartment and give me the money. I'm lost without your help." Nick, who'd always been so confident, suddenly seemed helpless, dumping the whole burden on his wife. "We'll figure it out. I'll find the money," she promised. For her beloved husband, nothing was too much. The apartment was hers outright. She could sell it and rent for the first time. It seemed like a reasonable solution. However, Betty's best friend, Nina, wasn't happy about it. And the fortune teller had thrown in her 2 cents. "Where will you live?" Nina fumed. "Why are you saying you? I'll be with Nick," Betty countered. "Think about yourself. This is your home, your grandma's place. You grew up here," Nina pushed. "Didn't you hear me? Nick might die," Betty cried out. "Let him move in with his sister, then. Was he even looking for money?" Nina's words were laced with a cynicism she must have picked up somewhere. "What could he possibly sell?" "Nina, how can you say that? He's my husband. Don't make rash decisions without advice. I can't come with you, but here's the address. Go there. Maybe you'll get the whole picture." Nina spoke mysteriously. At Grand Central Station, Betty pulled out her phone and dialed her friend's number. She craved to spill everything in person, to hash things out. With Nick back in the hospital yesterday, the thought of a solo night felt unbearable. "Hurry over, I'm waiting," Nina, who lived by herself, promised. "We can have tea at midnight, cuddle the cats, and chat all night long." The ringing of her phone startled Betty. It was Nick. "Honey, I'm stuck here all week. More tests." Her husband spoke calmly and convincingly, as always. "Sweetie, I'll be there tomorrow." "What can I whip up for you?" Betty fretted. "Maybe your favorite fish and rice. Sound good?" "Nah, don't worry about food. The hospital grub is decent. Just call me around lunchtime, 3 o'clock. No need to come." She could almost swear she detected a hint of annoyance. It was typical for him to dictate instead of asking. "What about the surgery? Any idea on the cost? Why won't insurance cover it? Shouldn't I call and check?" Betty persisted. "Forget about it. I've got it handled. It's a hefty sum, and selling your apartment is the only way. See you tomorrow. Call at 3. Nick's tone left no room for argument. Betty choked back tears as she ended the call. If a real estate agent were walking by, she'd sign a contract on the spot. Cake in tow, she knocked on Nina's door. Time to spill everything. Maybe she can recommend a good realtor. Nina listened intently. After a long tea session, they settled on a spacious couch with colorful pillows. The cat curled up in Betty's lap, purring contentedly. "Look, after all these years together, I don't see another option. I'll show him how much I love and care for him. The apartment is just stuff. Nick's health is what truly matters," Betty declared. Nina took a deep breath. "God knows, I didn't want to say it. I didn't have the heart. I thought you'd go to the fortune teller and get some answers. But I was wrong." She turned fully to her friend, her voice rising. "Betty, your husband is cheating. And not just a little. He's been doing it for a while. He even has a second landing strip now." The world seemed to shatter around Betty. Everything felt surreal, and a wave of dizziness washed over her. "What?" she croaked, her voice barely a whisper. Nina rose from her chair and walked to the dresser, returning with a photo album. "Remember my cabin in Harmony Lake? When I got that old film camera, I used to explore the area a lot. There's a nice lake nearby. People always gather at the beach in summer. One day, I spotted your car, and I thought I might see you. So, I used a telephoto lens, like a giant zoom, to see better. It's a lot of open space there, spread out quite a bit. Nina, don't leave me hanging. Show me what you have, Betty pleaded. Nina handed over the photograph. On the rectangular map prints, it was impossible to miss the broad shoulders, athletic build, and charming smile of Nick. The pictures aren't the best quality, but I couldn't help myself. He was treating this woman so kindly, so attentively. It was like watching a real gentleman in action. Nina sighed again. That's my neighbor at the cabin. I talked to her. They're even planning to buy a bigger house together. Nina met Betty's gaze directly. So, did you figure it out? Despite the overwhelming shock, Betty had already connected the dots. And she thought about the illness, which she'd kept from the doctors because Nick had already told them everything, and the work delays, and the long business trips. But the most disheartening part was that the money from selling the apartment wouldn't be used for treatment. In the photograph, her husband wore a blue sweater, and his hands looked worn. There went the fantasy the fortune teller had woven. Can I crash here tonight? Betty asked weakly. The next day, the friends sat together, navigating the bureaucratic maze of government agencies. Filing for divorce wasn't a simple process, but at least they could do it without disturbing the cat nestled in Betty's lap. Nina, you might think I'm crazy, Betty began. I'm sure I will, Nina chuckled. Why's that? I'm relieved that Nick isn't actually sick. A woman's intuition isn't always about being quiet and patient. Sometimes, looking out for yourself is the smartest thing you can do. I hope you enjoyed this story. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more awesome stories in the future. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey, and we'll see you next video.